Okay, so this is a video of me redoing Ardra nakshatra, which is the 6th nakshatra out of the 27 nakshatras in Vedic sidereal astrology. This is a nakshatra that falls in between 6.40 degrees of Sagittarius to 20 degrees of Sagittarius. The deity that rules this nakshatra is Rudra, and the planet that rules this nakshatra is the North Node Rahu. And the symbolism of this nakshatra is either a head, a diamond, or it's one other thing, but I forgot. It's mainly, the symbolism is mainly a head or like a diamond. Oh, there you go, a teardrop. And the sexual animal associated with this is a female dog. So yeah, like I said, I'm redoing this video like I did a few other nakshatras because it's got better knowledge and understanding of these nakshatras. So let's start off with talking about the mythology associated with Rudra. Rudra is stated to be born from Lord Brahma, one of the major three Trinity Vedic gods in Hindu, culture and in Vedic astrology and stuff. He is known as the creator god, and it is stated that he got angry one day because his children, they didn't want to reproduce and have kids. They wanted to just live a spiritual divine life, and that made him mad. And out of that anger, this deity, this entity, came out of his forehead, known as Rudra. It's stated that this deity came out of his forehead, and that deity split up into like 11 forms. And then that deity made like a female copy of himself, known as Rudrani, I believe. It made 11 forms of that woman. Rudrani made 11 forms of herself, and there was 11 Rudras. And these Rudras went on, and they just caused a whole lot of destruction throughout the universe or whatever. And Brahma told them to, stop this destruction and to, meditate on like God or the divine or whatever and stuff. So the Rudras, all of them came, the Rudras and the Rudranis, I believe, they all came into one body, and they went and meditated. And it's stated that once this Rudra, began meditating, or was done with his meditation, he transformed his appearance, and I believe he transformed into Shiva. And I believe he transformed into Shiva, and then maybe, that feminine side of him, that Rudrani side of him, created Parvati. There's a whole lot of, different interpretations and takes on the origins of Rudra, but that is one of the, that's an interpretation and path that I'm going based upon what I read, but you'll see a whole bunch of conflicting information. But yeah, Rudra came from the anger of Lord Brahma, but it is also stated that Rudra is a form, and just a form of a Lord Shiva also, apparently. Rudra is known as the storm god, this god of wild animals, medicine. He's a hunter, and just this storm god. It is, you'll see people who have a prominent planets in Rudra, in Ardra nakshatra, they will have issues with their father. They would likely not get along with their father or father-like figure in their life. The reason behind this is because of the animosity that Rudra or Shiva had towards Brahma, who was essentially like his father in a sense. One of the most famous or more common stories is that it is stated that Lord Brahma, he fell greatly in love with his own daughter one day. His daughter Rohini, which is one of the nakshatras in Taurus, in the Taurus sign. And he fell in love with her. He was infatuated with her. He found her very beautiful, very attractive, and he wanted to have sex with her, but she didn't want to have sex with him. So he ends up chasing her, and he couldn't control himself. And it's stated that Rohini, she ended up like taking on the form of like a deer or whatever, and runs away from him. And the other gods, they couldn't take this. They couldn't stand to watch that this guy wanted to have sex with his own daughter against her will. So it's stated that in one interpretation that Rudra came, or was created, or just came out of nowhere, and with a bow and arrow he shot off one of Brahma's heads, because it was stated that Brahma had 5 heads, and he ended up shooting off one of Brahma's heads. And after he did that, Brahma came to his senses, and he went and like retreated, or just retreated, and just felt shameful of his actions or whatever. And it stated that after one interpretation is that it stated that after Brahma got his head shot off, that Rudra took that head and he threw it out into the universe, and his head, that head that he tossed, it ended up forming the constellation, the nakshatra Mrigadhira, which is the nakshatra that comes before Ardra nakshatra. And the symbolism for Mrigadhira is the head of a deer. And if you look at my Mrigadhira video, you'll understand that it's also a very sexual and lustful nakshatra. So it's very fitting that you'll see that. You'll see that it's just very fitting how the constellations and nakshatras fall. Rudra shoots off the head of Brahma because he was lustful. He takes that head, throws it, and it forms this constellation of Mrigadhira. And Rohini, is stated that she took the form of a deer and ran away from Brahma. So you just see how they all tell a story. Rohini, Mrigadhira, and Ardra nakshatra sort of like tells the story of a chase of Brahma chasing his daughter Rohini, and then Rudra coming in and shooting off the head of Brahma so that he could come to his senses. So what you can take from this nakshatra is that you'll see that Ardra people, they are very selfless people. An Ardra person is very selfless because Rudra came and he defended this woman who was being chased by this man. And even Shiva, because Shiva and Rudra, they're sort of synonymous. They're sort of like the same thing. It's like Vishnu in his incarnations. They all like the same being. But Shiva, it is stated that, during the churning of the ocean, which I don't know much about. I don't know what that phrase means too much. I believe it's a metaphorical phrase. It's a metaphorical sense. It's a story that talks about the creation of the universe and how things came to be. But it's stated that during this churning of the ocean, that poison or negative qualities and traits came out of this ocean, came out of this churning. And Shiva went and he swallowed this poison. He drank this poison. And he drank this poison, and it turned his skin blue, or it turned his throat blue, which is sort of why Shiva is portrayed to be blue. And his wife Parvati ends up putting her hands around his neck to hold the poison from spreading through his body. But this snake, known as Vasuki, who was used during this churning of the ocean, ends up wrapping himself around Shiva's neck to keep the poison from being swallowed and traveling through his body. This is why you'll see that Shiva is commonly portrayed as having a snake around his neck, and Rudra is also portrayed to have a snake around his neck or on his body. And there's many spiritual significations with that also, because you can sort of tie that to Kundalini awakening. How is Kundalini or Kundalini awakening or whatever described? It is described as a serpent. It's described as like energy in your spine, within your 7 chakras in your spine, and the energy is like a coiled, balled up snake at the root of your body, your root chakra. And the goal is to get that snake energy to wake up and rise above your 7 chakras. The root of it is to get it to rise above your chakras, and you'll gain like heightened awareness and enlightenment, and just have a different perception of reality or the world and all that good stuff. So with the snake being portrayed around Shiva's neck and at the top of his head, it sort of is representative of Kundalini awakening, the height of Kundalini awakening. And the snake Vasuki is a Naga, an Asura. What are Nagas? They're these snake-like deities, these snake-like beings, or these humanoid snake beings. And they are stated to, you know, I don't know, all Nagas aren't bad. They're like anyone else. They can exude their good traits or their negative traits. But if you want to know more about Nagas, look at my Slasha video in Cancer. But short and simple, snakes are stated to have like these mystical, occultic knowledge and information. It's stated that, you know, the Nagas, they love jewels and gems. And if they don't have like a if they don't have like a wealth of secret sacred knowledge, maybe they might have like a wealth of like jewels and stuff. So they're like a keeper and hoarder of like treasure and precious things. But in the sense of Ardra, you just see that these people are just very, you know, intelligent or occultic and just hold secret, sacred knowledge and can reach the height of like spiritual, you know, awakening if they choose to strive towards that. Another thing about Ardra nakshatra is that these people are great doctors. They're great healers because Shiva is a deity, the only deity who's stated to have the ability to revive people from the dead, is able to bring people to life. And he taught this ability to the deity that rules and represents Venus, who is known as the Guru Shukracharya. But yes, it is stated that Shiva knows Sanjeevani. Yeah, Sanjeevani. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering up the word Vidya. Sanjeevani is like named after like a plant. I know I'm messing up the word, but y'all can go look it up. But he has the ability to revive people from the dead. And because he has this ability to revive people from the dead, this is why Rudra, the deity who rules this nakshatra, or Shiva, whatever, they sort of synonymous. This is why this nakshatra is associated with, you know, like great healers, or known to be like one of the best healers, is stated apparently. And these people can have a love for weapons. They could just have a love and fascination for weapons. Because, think about it, Rudra is known to be a hunter. He's stated to be a hunter. And what does a hunter need? A hunter needs tools. A hunter needs weapons. And even if things that further supports this claim of mine is that Shiva is stated, and at least in the few mythological stories that I've read, it is stated that people have prayed to him and done penances and offerings and sacrifices to him in order to to obtain mastery or over weaponry and stuff, certain weaponry and stuff. One of the more common known examples is of Vishnu's sixth incarnation, whose name I cannot pronounce and I don't want to butcher up. But in Vishnu's sixth incarnation, this is a man who is a Brahmin, whose caste is a Brahmin. Yeah, whose caste is a Brahmin, but he ends up becoming very angry and turns damn near essentially into Kratos from God of War with the axe, and ends up killing and slaying a whole bunch of evil, unruly leaders and monarchs during his time in era. It's stated that he prayed to Shiva to be blessed with a weapon or with an axe that will make him undefeatable when he holds it, when he wields it. So that's one example. And there's other examples, but I don't know the exact nitty-gritty details to give them to you word for word. But yeah, Shiva, there's many stories and examples of people praying to Shiva and asking to be blessed with like a divine weapon in order to like slay and win and get the upper hand and advantage over an enemy. So this is why you can see with Ardra people, they can have a love for weaponry. You know, it could just be maybe knives and guns or a bow and arrow, because that's the main tool that Rudra uses. He uses a bow and arrow. And the bow and arrow can be symbolic of these people being very goal-oriented, being very focused on a task and goal. They just be very goal-oriented. There is a character in Hinduism from this epic known as the Mahabharata, which is this big war apparently that occurred. There's a character known as Arjuna, and it is stated that he is like the best archer, and it's stated that he's just the best of the best archer. And there was a time when his teacher, his archery teacher, whose name I don't remember, was asking his students, his archers, to draw their bow and arrow at a target, and he would ask them what did they see before they would he would ask them before he tells them to fire. He would ask them what did they see, and they would describe everything but their target. They would be, I see the sun, I see the buildings, I see the stars, I see the sky. And when they would start talking about that bullshit, the teacher, the archer, the teacher would tell the archer, all right, that's enough. You clearly got poor aim. You clearly can't see well. But when it came to Arjuna, and when Arjuna drew his arrow, or aimed his arrow, and was asked, what do you see? It was stated that he said, I see nothing but my target. I only see my target. I only see my goal. Because all the other archers, it's sort of like a trick question, but all the other archers, they were describing everything else. Their goal is to hit this target, but they describing everything else outside of that target. Arjuna was like, I see nothing but my target, and he ends up being given permission to fire the arrow, and he ends up hitting his target. So you can see this focusedness when it comes, this focused nature, or this goal-oriented nature when it comes to an archer person. Think about it. If you are like drawing an arrow and you need to hit a target, you're essentially like a sniper. You need to be focused. If you're sniping somebody, you don't need to be worried about what's going on around you. You don't need to see nothing but your target, because that's what you're trying to hit. You only got like a narrow window of success, and you want to make sure that you succeed. So you'll see that nature with an Ardra person. They're very goal-oriented, or they're just very focused people. And another thing with these people, they are not easily distracted. An Ardra person is not easily distracted, and they can see through deceptions. The reason I say this is because, for one, Rudra is portrayed, at least from what I Googled, he is shown with like a deer near him or whatever. And another thing with Rudra is that I told you that he took the head of Brahma, it's stated, and he threw the head, and it formed the constellation of Mrigasira, whose symbolism is a head, whose symbolism is a deer head. And Shiva, he has a crescent moon in his head. And I believe from what I've looked up, that the moon spirit, Chandra, or aka Soma, he rides an antelope, but in some interpretations it might be a deer. But regardless, even though a deer and an antelope are different, aesthetically they look symbolic, they look similar, but I'm gonna just go ahead and say a deer, even though I'm probably wrong, just to prove my fucking point. It is stated that, in Vishnu's 7th incarnation as Lord Ram, his wife Sita spotted a gold deer, and she spotted a gold deer, and she wanted her husband to go and capture this gold deer. But when Ram went to the gold deer ended up being a demon, and his wife ended up getting kidnapped, and he had to go on this huge journey to go and get his wife back. And it's also, you'll find out in more detail if you look at my Punyavasu video, that in order for Lord Ram to win over his wife Sita, he had to be able to pick up the bow and fire the bow and arrow of Lord Shiva. So we see how after, Ardra nakshatra, who is Rudra with a bow and arrow, we see that the following nakshatra, Punyavasu, is, its symbolism is a bow and arrow also. And mythologically, it's tied to the 7th incarnation of Vishnu, which is Lord Ram. And he had to go and carry this bow and arrow that Shiva had. So you see how these nakshatras, they sort of play out and tell a story. But anyway, Ardra nakshatra, is a hunter, and he's not going to get distracted. He's not going to get distracted by a deer. He's not going to get thrown off by the metaphorical representation of a deer, which could be being deceived by things. The Ardra person, they can see through deceptions. They got a keen sense of perception when it comes to things. And what else can I say about these people? Naturally, you would see people with Ardra placements, they could potentially have dreadlocks, because they could either have dreadlocks or they could wear their hair natural or in a wild, unkept fashion, because Shiva is basically down there portrayed to have his head in like long locks or whatever. So you can see that an Ardra person, or if your seventh lord is an Ardra, that person, they might have locks or whatever and stuff. Another thing with an Ardra person is that they sort of have like the higher side of an Ardra person is that they are not fickle-minded. They can control their mind, which sort of goes back to that bow and arrow symbolism where I told you that these people are very focused, but there's a reason why Shiva has a crescent moon in his head. There's sort of a symbolic reason why Rudra has a crescent moon in his head. It's stated that the moon spirit, it's stated that he is like married to the 27 nakshatras. But when he got to Rohini nakshatra, which is where the moon is the most exalted in Taurus, he fell deeply in love with her and he wanted to stay with her, just like Brahma did. But the other women, the other nakshatras, they complained that he wasn't visiting them, that he neglected them, because he wanted to stay with Rohini. So what ends up happening is that the moon spirit ends up getting cursed to die, and he ends up praying to Lord Shiva to be saved from this curse. And Shiva said, I can't change this curse. I can't remove it, but I can modify it. So he made it so that the moon will be reborn every time he dies, because Shiva has the ability to revive people. So this is a mythological reason why the moon waxes and wanes, which is why it gets real bright. Yeah, which is why the moon sort of becomes like, a full moon and becomes strong, and why it starts to die and become a dark moon, becomes new moon. This is why it goes through that rebirth, that death and rebirth process and stuff. And like I said, the moon stays in a sign. It goes from a different sign every 2.5 days. And the moon goes in a new nakshatra every day. So we see that the moon is unstable. We see the moon is fickle. The moon is fast-paced. And with Shiva having that moon on his head and always meditating, we see that he sort of got control and mastery over the mind. Just added the moon. There we go. I now look a bit sexy. But yeah, he just has control and mastery over his mind. What's another thing I could say about this nakshatra? So, the goal and role and job of an Ardra person is to really rise above the negative traits and qualities of Rudra that he portrayed early on. Because what did I say about Rudra? He came out of the head of Brahma, the eyebrows of Brahma, from his anger. And he caused a whole lot of havoc and destruction. And he had to be informed that you need to meditate and stuff. And it's only when he meditated that he became, this better person and stuff. It's stated that Rudra is known as the howler or the wailer, the crier. This like a battle cry, like a cry or roar, or like a cry or a roar of anger and frustration. Because Rudra is this real angry personification and form of Shiva. So people with placements in Ardra, they are very likely early on in life, or maybe throughout all their life, if they don't become aware and conscious, they can exude the negative traits and qualities of this nakshatra, which is just being very extreme, very emotional, very angry and volatile. But if they conquer this anger, they can control their emotions. They can become this very self-controlled, powerful, selfless, maybe enlightened person. But that's like the Ardra person's goal. They need to, gain mastery over their and control over their extreme emotions and whatnot. Another thing about Ardra people is that they would, like I said, they would love to meditate and they would love to be in isolation. Because Shiva, he lives in Mount Kailash, which, by the way, so happens to be a real actual mountain. A real place that I believe is in China. Y'all can go Google this, look it up. Mount Kailash. It's a real place, which I was astounded and shocked when I looked it up. It's a mountain that no one has ever climbed. It's a mountain that no one has ever been able to climb. It's stated that, maybe the few people who have climbed, either maybe one has died, or on their attempt of climbing and failing to climb it for whatever reason, that, they sort of like, they didn't live too long afterwards. Or they just found themselves aging drastically or rapidly after their attempt to climb the mountain. It's stated to be like a sin to try to climb up that mountain. So therefore, most people don't attempt to climb up that mountain. Instead, what people do is that they just maybe walk around the mountain. They do a trek around the mountain, but no one has ever climbed up the mountain. It has been unclimbable for whatever reason. People just stay away from it. But that is the place where it's stated that Shiva lives. But isn't that amazing? We can go to outer space. We can go to the depths of the ocean. But we're scared, or we're unable to climb a mountain. We can go to a pyramid, but we can't climb a mountain. But anyway, that's where Shiva is stated to live. And like I said, these people, because like I said, he loves to be in isolation and he loves to meditate. So these people, they can love that too. These people can also be great communicators. The reason these people can be great communicators is because this is a Rahu ruled nakshatra. And it is stated that Rahu is associated with pigs. So I started looking up the facts around pigs. And it stated that pigs, they are very communicative with each other. And it is stated that pigs, most pigs, their intelligence, it exceeds that of a dog. A pig could be goddamn smarter than most, and could be smarter than most dogs. So a pig is very intelligent. So what does that tell us? An Ardra person, and this goes for all the Rahu ruled nakshatras, but an Ardra person could be very communicative, and a Rahu person, an Ardra person is just naturally very intelligent. And what else do we know about pigs? Pigs are commonly one of the main things that are used as sacrifices. If you was to do some spiritual ritual and occultic stuff, they're used for sacrifices and rituals. So if this being a Rahu ruled nakshatra, we can see that an Ardra person, they could develop an interest and love for occultic practices and rituals and doing sacrifices. And we could see that an Ardra person, they could really be like an outcast, which is fitting of Rahu, because Rahu is like an outcast. But an Ardra person could become an outcast, or they might just really go against societal norms, go against religions, and just really not maybe fit into much with what most people do. Why? Think about it. A pig or eating pork is like frowned upon in religions. Mainly Muslim religion is frowned upon. So these people, they might not adhere or go along with, traditional religions and stuff, or any belief system for the most part. They'll have their own twist and spin on it. What else do I know about this nakshatra? So let's get to the female dog. What can we take with the female dog? Well, it is stated that Shiva also has like another form of himself, or another deity who is stated to be like an aspect of Shiva, known as Bhairava. And it's stated that the name Bhairava means, translates it to like troublesome, worrisome, fearful, or something. Just negative. It just translates into a very, fearful name or whatever. It just means like fear or troublesome and worry and stuff. And this deity is stated to have temples in India and stuff where people can go to, and the purpose of going to this temple is so that you can be relieved and be extinguished of these negative traits and qualities that man possesses, such as fear, lust, anger, and all these other traits. You go to this temple and you ask to be rid of these, negative traits. And it is stated that Bhairava, which y'all can look up, Bhairava, the vehicle, the animal that he travels on, is a dog. And with this being a sexual animal, being a dog, you can sort of connect that deity with this nakshatra, especially since it's related to Shiva. And another story, and what you can take from that story before I move on, is that, again, these people can love to meditate because they're trying to control and rid themselves of these negative traits and qualities and emotions. Because these people can have a temper. These people can have a temper. They can have an anger. There's many stories of Shiva, of when he's being interrupted when meditating, or when he's just disrespected, or seemingly for the most simplest things, he gets angry and his third eye opens and it just instantly disintegrates. It instantly disintegrates the person and instantly kills them for seemingly very small things. He even one time killed and disintegrated the god of death, Yama, before being convinced that he needs to revive the god of death, because the god of death is very important. But these people just have this anger where they just want to disintegrate their person, or just disintegrate someone, and then they might feel bad after they disintegrated that person. So another thing with this nakshatra about Bhairava, there is one interpretation where there was an argument between Shiva and Lord Brahma about who is like the best and most supreme godly being, the most supreme godly deity. And it's stated that Lord Brahma got real cocky. He got real egotistical and just was just talking big shit, and this irritated Shiva. So Shiva ended up creating Bhairava, this form of himself. And it is stated that Bhairava ends up, I believe, shooting off one of the heads of Brahma. And after he rips off this head of Brahma, or shoots off this head of Brahma, he ends up feeling bad that he just did this. Like, damn, I lost control of myself. I let him get to me. And I ended up, ripping off one of his heads. And it's stated that Bhairava ended up going... It's sort of weird, the interpretation. There's many different interpretations, but it's stated that Bhairava, this form of Shiva, went to Shiva and asked him, what should I do? And it's stated that Shiva's told him that, you need to wander until you can find a place where you can get rid of that head. Because it's stated that Bhairava, after he ripped off the head of Brahma, that he couldn't remove the head from his hand. And he realized that he committed like a great sin by killing a very spiritual and wise and enlightened person, or at least removing the head of a very spiritual, enlightened, and powerful person. So he ends up wandering the universe until, he ends up wandering the universe, sort of, trying to atone, until he finds some place where the head comes off. And I don't know if where the head falls off is Migashira constellation, but eventually he travels and the head falls out of his hand and it's almost like that sin has been paid. So like I said, we could see these people, you know, these people, they can have a temper. These people cannot get along with their father-like figure. These people, they might end up like leaving home early. You know, they might end up moving early. They might end up running away or moving out early and wandering, just like Bhairava did. And it's also stated that Saturn, aka Shani, he is portrayed being shown with a black dog sometimes. And there's symbolism behind that. Because Saturn is a planet that's associated with karma. He makes you pay for the actions that you've done. He holds you accountable for the actions that you've done. And so knowing that Saturn is also sometimes portrayed with a black dog, it shows us that it just further reinforces that it is an Ardra person's duty. It is their job, sort of like in this lifetime, to it is like their job to master the lower traits of themselves, control their anger, control their frustrations, and channel it into something nobler. You know, be that heightened Kundalini awakened form that you can be. Because like I said, the snake is always around the head of Shiva, always around the neck, near the throat and the third eye and the crown chakra. And the snakes, the nagas, they hold occultic, spiritual, mystical information. And they got a lot of negative traits associated with them. But with Shiva sort of having this, you know, snake tamed, we see that he has the ability to overcome negative traits and qualities. We see that he has the ability to overcome deceptions and lies. And we see that you, as an Ardra person, you too can, you know, develop these traits and skills. Another thing with an Ardra person is that they could love to dance, and they could love the instrument of they could love to play the drum. They could love to dance, they could love the drum, or they could just love the beat and the rhythm of music in general. I say this because Shiva is portrayed to have a drum known as a Damaru drum. Damaru, a Damaru drum. And it is stated that this drum in real life is, at least in Buddhism or whatever, is used to help people with their meditation. But there's spiritual interpretations of it too. It's stated that, you know, that by beating the drum, or Shiva beating the drum, sort of like gives off like, supposed to generate like spiritual energies, or just it just shows how he's like in flow or in rhythm with the flow of the universe or something like that. There's some spiritual implications there that I couldn't find no clear logical answer to, and that I didn't really take the time to sit and reflect on. But we just see that Shiva loves to dance, he loves music, he's portrayed with a drum. So in practicality and reality, these people, they could love to dance, they could love the beat and the music and the rhythm of stuff. You would see that with them. I'm just looking at my notes to see what else can I say about this nakshatra so I don't miss nothing. Rudra is portrayed, and Shiva is portrayed like wearing like a tiger skin, right, like a tiger cloth or whatever around them. There's symbolism in that too, especially if you look at my video of Vishaka nakshatra, and if you look at my video of Chitra nakshatra, which is two nakshatras whose sexual animal is a tiger, you'll get a real heavy in-depth explanation. But I'm gonna try to run through it briefly here. The goddess Durga is portrayed riding on a tiger. The goddess Durga is stated to be a female goddess, and it's this female goddess who is portrayed riding a tiger, and she possesses all these divinely godly weapons, and she used these weapons to destroy and kill a demon who made a wish that no male god could be able to beat her and kill her. So she accomplished a seemingly impossible task. And that's one thing you can see about these Ardra people. These people can be like, they can just conquer and accomplish or do seemingly impossible things. Another story with the tiger is that there was another demon who made a wish that the only person that could kill her would be a child, would be a son from Lord Vishnu and Shiva. But that seems like almost a foolproof plan, because Shiva is a man, Vishnu is a man, but genders don't mean nothing when it comes to godly, divinely energy. Vishnu, he ends up reincarnating himself as a woman, has sex with Shiva, they produce a kid known as Ayappa. And one of the famous common stories is that Ayappa was sent out to the forest one day to retrieve milk from a tigress to give to his stepmother. His stepmother wanted to kill him by sending him to go to a tiger to get milk, but he achieved this seemingly impossible task, and he ends up riding on the back of this tiger with a pack of cubs following him. So, he was able to tame a beast. He was able to accomplish a seemingly impossible task. You'll see that with Ardra people. These Ardra people, they can have a love and affinity for animals. These people could really love animals and stuff. Have a soft spot for animals. And also, you can see like androgynous or androgyny or whatever with Ardra nakshatra. You can see people explore their sexuality, have those he, she, they pronouns, be transgender or whatever. You can see that. They can be very fluid in Ardra nakshatra. Because Shiva is portrayed sometimes as a man, Shiva is portrayed sometimes as a woman. Rudra is portrayed sometimes as a man and sometimes portrayed as a woman, known as Rudrani. It is stated that in one story, Shiva or Rudra or whatever wanted to attend this festival that the eighth incarnation of Vishnu was holding, whose name was Krishna. He was holding this festival that I don't know the name of, but it's a festival where all these beautiful women are just basically partying and dancing with him. Shiva, he heard this music. He was captivated by the music, and he wanted to join the party and dance too, but he was rejected because he was a man, and this greatly upsetted him. So he ended up meditating, and he ended up finding a woman, or finding a way to be able to embody feminine energy, and he was able to transform himself internally and externally and like possess the body and mind of a woman. And once his appearance changed, he was able to join this party and dance. So we just see that these people, they just have the ability to bounce in between a masculine energy and a feminine energy, which is very fitting because the symbolism, because it falls into Gemini. This nakshatra falls into Gemini sign, whose symbolism is a couple. It's stated to be a couple, even though you look at them, you see a twin, but you see that duality. And the duality here is that these people can, bounce in between maybe being feminine and masculine or all that stuff. An Ardra person has the ability to destroy the ego of people, because that's essentially what Bhairava did when he removed one of the heads of Brahma. Brahma was real cocky and egotistical, thinking he's the best, and then he got his head ripped off, and he got humbled. And you just see that these people have the ability to just like crush the ego of people, or move people's, or just wake people up, because he also shot off one of the heads of Brahma when he was very lustful over his own daughter. So these people can just wake people up. These people are not easily deceived. They can see through things. They can be great communicators. What else do I have to say about this nakshatra? They can be very spiritual and enlightened and awakened. And they can be great healers because Shiva knows how to revive people. And I believe that's all I gotta say in regards to this nakshatra. I hope this nakshatra, this new take of this video, of this nakshatra, gives you great insight and clarity on what happens if you have planets and Ardra nakshatra. If this resonated with you, like and subscribe the channel and the video. You want to go book a consultation with me and see what I gotta say about your chart. Yeah, if you want to go see what I have to say about your chart with me, go and click the about me section in my YouTube, and it'll be a link. And thank you for watching.